see it.
I'm not seeing anything. So you might have put it in before I got on. Oh,
Okay,
it
there we
just
go.
showed up.
All
Okay,
right.
there we go.
Okay, so what I saw from the link that you shared with me about the social justice guide, I mean,
Hmm.
this is the kind of content that is so comprehensive, so appropriate for right now. My goal is to find out what are you doing with as an Apple Distinguished Educator, and how,
Hmm.
and if you're able to share with me how other Apple Distinguished Educators are using it, what is the aggregate outcome from everybody's use of it, and how could we share this with other people who could possibly become um, interested in Apple Distinguished Educator program if they submit themselves for qualification. So I want to offer up some way to be a channel so that if there is an interest in figuring out what are some of the best practices of sharing or some of the best outcomes of sharing that curriculum, I would like to be able to offer up that channel to promote it to a community of other communicators, I mean, other educators and faculty who um, I think would be really impacted by something that, one, they didn't know existed, which is Apple's curriculum. Two, they don't know what an a distinguished educator is. I think a lot of them would absolutely want to try to apply if they knew. And then three, really, what could we look at this as something that eventually students would be the beneficiaries of. So I guess here's the questions that I had, and I'm going to have to assume that Dave got caught up. Um, when you sent me that guide, what were your thoughts?
Hmm. Um, you mean was it the racial equity and justice guide
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. So you can start by just
so
telling me what that is and why you
right.
think that you sent it to me.
Yeah. So, one of the big things with that is just the fact that Apple has always played a place within the last like 5, 6 years. We've always played a place in trying to create content to help educators with difficult things. So whether that's the everyone can code, where a lot of teachers don't feel comfortable with coding concepts. So here's a curriculum that they could actually use, or everyone can create because not every educator feels creative. Same thing here. When it comes to racial equity and justice, a lot of people don't feel equipped to have those deep conversations. So how can you provide them with a format to do that? And so that's twofold. Number one, it's the challenge-based learning approach to be able to think about big ideas and then how it relates to you, but also just a guide of what types of questions and how to lead students through that. So and that's all through our community education initiative. So I'm excited because who knows what else they're working on as we continue, because that's just the first part. When it comes to challenge-based learning, it's getting inspired and then really acting upon that and seeing what the results are. So yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah, and so looking at it was, just kind of glancing through it, rather not even looking at the components. I saw so many different things that the educators that I talk to, especially at higher education, um, are missing in their day-to-day activities with people since COVID. The remote learning part is really
Hmm.
just teaching curriculum and grading people, but there's nobody really checking in with them on a discussion about how they're feeling, what they could be doing um, to really provide an exchange beyond just the curriculum and the job that they've been paid to do. So, and I'm wondering if there's kind of a thought process that, especially for higher education, because I know with the FERPA laws, you can't share any of the stuff with people under 18. For the higher
Hmm.
education people, is there a way for them to be able to share the curriculum in a way where they could actually create some type of student voice or agency to share what they've learned?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not really sure. I know that you know, we have a number of Apple distinguished educators who are both at K-12 as well as higher ed, who are either in K-12 or higher ed, and some who are in both. So it would be interesting to see what they've done with this content and how they're putting the word out, because part of challenge-based learning is making an impact. And so that's you know, for sure means it's a bigger place. But that's also the outlook that Apple has on things like Create. You know, when we talk about creative, yeah, there's visual and performing arts, whether it's drawing or music or photography or video. But at the same time, I think that it's the idea of creating. You know, why are we creating? Getting back to not just, okay, I'm going to do a video, but what's the purpose of that? Okay, I could code an app, but what's the purpose of that? So, you know, and that comes back to things like challenge-based learning or design thinking, where you've got a target audience, you're empathizing with them, and you're designing for a solution. And it takes an inquiry-based mindset to do that. You can't just say, okay, let's create, let's paint. It's having an inquiry-based mindset of what are the challenges the world's facing, what can I do about that? And that's where, again, the Racial Equity and Justice Initiative, I think, is very strong, because it's the conversation, but you know, how will you take that now? What's your class going to do with this information? And I think with higher education, it's actually almost more important in a way, right? Because in higher education, you're focused on a specific curricular area, that's your major. But you know, to what purpose? Like, so what? You're studying economics, and you know, and I'm not picking on economics. I was an economics major, but at the same time, you know, to be able to take a step back and either utilize macroeconomics, microeconomics, statistics, whatever it may be in economics, to actually benefit and push forward and be within the context of racial equity and justice, I think would be fascinating. And so, you know, I find that the guide is actually almost more important, right, for
higher
the
education.
higher
Yeah,
education areas.
absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things we talked about, you know, with the Los Angeles County folks, Greg Johnson, is certification, micro certification, and why. I think that this is a moment where students could become proficient in understanding how to use the tools of creative, in a way where they could learn the tools to get the certifications, but as you said, to what end? In a way where they could actually get a certification in, dare I say, social justice, and being able to hit
Yeah,
the pillars of what
right.
social justice, especially within the guide, say that, you know, challenge-based learning is to really set those standards, um, as we're moving along. Because again, from the mouth to the kids, there may be pillars in there that are not even established in the guide. And from
Hmm.
them, especially as you know, we talk about pedagogy that allows student agency and voice. I really like to see what kind of inclusion could be brought by bringing those students into the discussion about, things that could be missing or things that could be amplified.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You know, and it, you know, in terms of opportunities to speak to education leaders about this, I think it's just such a difficult time, though, right? Because people are still struggling in survival mode with the pandemic and learning remotely or in a hybrid model. You know, it's it's difficult to get people's attention to focus on something like this. Um, so I don't necessarily have any answers. I do think that the fact that there are so many Apple distinguished educators out there. I mean, there's, I don't know, something like 2,000, 3,000, maybe not all
and
active, but
is that
across the
nationally?
world.
Is that nationally? 2 to 3,000
Yeah,
nationally?
internationally. I
Internationally?
don't know the exact number. I want to say it's close to 3,000 at this point, because the program's been around for 20 years. Um, and there's typically about 130 to 150 chosen every other year. Um, so, you know, I think the thing is figuring out a way to gather these stories, to gather the actual work that's being done in classrooms, whether at K-12 or higher ed, is needed. I know that Twitter's real active. I mean, Tuesday nights, Apple Distinguished Educators in the classroom have a Twitter chat at 6:30, and then Thursday nights, I'm not sure if it's every Thursday or every other, but Thursday nights it's administrators from Apple Distinguished Schools. So, you know, I know they're very active in Twitter, and they use specific hashtags like Apple EDU chat. But it would be interesting to see how some of the stories can be collected, or projects could be collected to inspire others and to build off of it.
That would
And
be my
yeah,
greatest takeaway from our discussion today is what can you spotlight as things that could be published and shared with other folks who aren't in the Apple Distinguished Educator community? Because my goal really is to make sure that they're open to the possibility that the fact that that they don't know you exist, or Apple Distinguished Educators does exist, is something that I believe I can penetrate the minds of some of the folks that I'm going to use a pilot on. And I'm really focusing on
hmm
community college right now. And the pilot that I'm looking at is maybe for 5 community colleges in LA County, but it could extend to 29 through one person, through
yeah,
Charlotte, through LA County and Orange County for higher ed. And they're all struggling, obviously, as you mentioned about how to just survive, not just for the students, but just as a institution. But I think that's why this is a perfect moment to still provide an overlay for them to understand that they're not alone in trying to figure out how to get these students further along, especially in certifications, as well as programming that can challenge them to be more engaged beyond just taking classes and getting grades, that they really not feeling that is going to give them the kind of value that they had even before COVID. So I think that, through Charlotte, through Richard Verchess that you've talked to, even Jessica Lim, who are still in the fight to try to bring resources to the community colleges. I think that I want a pilot to focus on how we can get that Twitter chat or any capture that's curated to bring them into focus as to what we can do, especially during Black History Month, um, how
hmm
to create some type of competition, challenge-based learning for those students to get in.
yeah,
So that's my thought. If I could have a podcast or something that could allow those students to participate in a way that um, they're not waiting for the faculty to provide a Zoom and a link and whatever. That's even more um, salient for the people that I'm currently working with, who are, really in workforce. They're working right now in the gig economy and they're doing things, but they're still interested in um, a way to share what they're doing in this gig economy for other students who are trying to learn how to get a living wage. So
yeah,
my no, still not a proposal, but what I'd like to do is try and get another stab with you so that I can take what I've learned about anything and get Dave and a couple of other people on to talk about a what if before we even submit something that you could fly up the
yeah,
flagpole as a proposal. But higher ed is really where I'm focused on. 5 community colleges, the month of February, to see if we can actually get these people wrangled to some outcome.
yeah,
And I have a ton of celebrities and some other people who would probably work well with a discussion around social equity, racial justice. But again, those are baked into the proposal. I mean,
yeah,
people that you've already, I put up on the screen some additional people, Carl Mack, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but they are all going to be on the ready for a discussion, and they're more reachable now because of the digital realm we're in than ever before. So,
yeah, yeah,
so,
for sure.
so think about it. Think about another date in the not too distant future where we can talk about the next step of coming up with a a a pilot that could take the higher education stuff that's publishable, that's shareable, and engage the people that I could put before anybody, especially you, to
hmm
talk to about why.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right, man. So I think we're out of time.
Hey,
But
yeah. Hey,
yeah.
take care of yourself. Okay.
I will. All right, Ted. So look, yeah, so just
All right.
shoot me a text with another date and time and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, man.
Okay, great.
All right. Bye.
Bye.